Okay, we'll talk now about two other architects. We'll start with Gordon Bunshaft, also connected with the day of with May 9th. That's because he was born on May 9th, just like Raphael Moneo. So Gordon Bunshaft, 1909-1999. He died in August, but born on May 9th, was an American architect, a leading proponent of modern design in the mid-20th century, a partner in Skidmore, Owings Merrill, SOM. Bunshaft joined the firm in 1937 and remained with it for more than 40 years. His notable buildings include Lever House in New York, the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale University, the Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden in Washington, D.C., the National Commercial Bank in Jeddah, I don't know if I pronounce well, Saudi Arabia, and manufacturers Hanover Trust Branch Bank in New York. The last was the first post-war transparent bank on the East Coast of the United States. I noted for myself these two rather malicious words: capitalism, Apollonic capitalism. I was thinking a bit when I was contemplating his work. Here he is in front of the famous library that he built. Here he is again, Gordon Bunshaft. Drawings. Well, more words than drawings, but the drawings are there too. And, you know, some, who knows, you know, presentation works at the time without digitalization. This is an interesting building that he built, and we are going to see it in the Arab world, the library, back to the Arab world. And anyway, no, you know, flamboyant or lyrical drawings by Gordon Bunshaft. He didn't draw like Alvaro Siza, that's for sure. Now let's see, 1942, Great Lakes Naval Training Center, the Hostess House in Great Lakes, Illinois. We are talking about, when was this built? 1942, well, close to mid-century, but before the war ended. And I think its modernism is quite fresh. It doesn't look like a 1942 building. And I admire the mid-20th century architecture and design. It does have a fresh modernism, which, you know, I don't know if I can say the same thing about our time. The Lever House in New York City, across the street from the famous Seagram building by Miss van der Rohe. Well, he built it, he designed it, but the drawings were signed by Philip Johnson because Miss van der Rohe didn't have the right to sign projects in the United States, at least at that time when he built the Seagram building. So, but this is the Lever House by Gordon Bunshaft. Glass, glass, and glass again. Some green. Lever House, 1951. And you see the Lever House, of course, is this one here, and you see it from underneath the Seagram building by Miss van der Rohe. So this column and the slab above belong to the Seagram building by Miss van der Rohe, New York City. Manufacturers Hanover Trust Company, building 1953. again, I would say a fresh modernism, which is still valid in my opinion. I mean, if we build today like this, we wouldn't be really ashamed, would we? Gordon Bunshaft. Consular Agency of the United States in Bremen, in Germany, 1956. Now this one, is less intriguing, perhaps, but very well executed. Connecticut General Life Insurance, 1957. The United States still has a lot of space, as you can see in this picture. It had then and still has, but the parking lots of the United States keep increasing. I read that 10% of the land of the United States is covered by asphalt for parkings. 10%, that's unbelievable. But this building is in its own almost international style kind of way, still legitimate somehow for corporate, for corporate functions. Snow. Soon we might look at snow with a sense of immense wonder in some parts of the world, which now have only 3 seasons. Istanbul Hotel in Turkey, 1955. Gordon Bunshaft, rather inviting canopy above the entrance, although not very, very spectacular, but still. Turkey. So Reynolds Metals Company International Headquarters, Richmond, Virginia, 1958. The same kind of, big corporate buildings with beautiful trees, a courtyard. Sometimes I miss the United States. In the past, I wouldn't say something like this, but here I am. Maybe not everything is bad there. The trees certainly are not bad. They are beautiful. The bigger, the better. 28 Liberty Street, 1961. It's this tall building in a city of tall buildings. The shadow of a tall building on a tall building. Gordon Bunshaft, SOM, Skidmore, Owings Merrill. How luminous it is, surrounded by very darkened buildings. Maybe it was doctored, the photograph. Montreal, 1962, another tall building, typical North American moving upwards. Albrecht Knox Art Gallery, an important art gallery in Buffalo, New York, an addition because there is an existing building on the left, but he built this one that you see here. And you are going to see also the existing older building. You see it here on the left. So what do we see here? We see harmony through contrast. The buildings have nothing in common, one with the other. Nothing. Maybe 2 students of art students, maybe. A pastoral picture in front of a modernist building. Henri Moore, the sculptor, the British sculptor, in front of the building by Gordon Bunshaft. He was also a collector of modern art. He had the money to collect important artworks. I hope I show here his private residence, where he also exhibited his collection. I always like this contrast between an old building and a new building. A new building which is not timid to say, hey, I have to respect the context and behave like the old building. No. Travertine House, East Hampton, New York, 1963, his own house. He didn't build another private house. So the only private house he built was for himself, Gordon Bunshaft. I lived for 2 years in East Hampton, New York, so I'm nostalgic again. There are two East Hamptons, actually. There is the East Hampton of the rich, and then there is the East Hampton of the poor. And the poor are servants for the rich. And I used to take the bus to go to an experimental school that hired me as an artist in residence. And in the bus, I would hear stories, you know, of people who would go, a cook, all kinds of people who worked. East Hampton is a location for the elite, you know, for the very rich, but the very rich need people to serve them. And in the bus, there were exactly such people. And me, I even thought of making a film, you know, called The Other East Hampton. Start in the morning with the people telling stories in the bus, and then in the evening, when I took the bus back home, to hear the stories of maybe the same people or similar people about the working day in the famous East Hampton. I mean, you look here, you know, Richard Meyer built the houses there, and other, you know, modernist architects, playboy architects like, you know, Charles Guilherme Siegel and others. It's a blessed place, maybe too blessed. And it even has a pyramid. East Hampton has a pyramid. That is the garbage pyramid, because you have to go with the garbage to that pyramid. I mean, it became a pyramid, you know, through accumulation of garbage. There isn't a garbage service, so you have to go with a car and discard, you know, what is to be discarded in that ominous place, surrounded by, you know, dark birds, excited about the remnants. I mean, you know, what is discarded by the rich, and sometimes even famous. I used to work for an experimental school funded and founded by a lady whose neighbors were right across the street, Steven Spielberg and Calvin Klein. But this is the house of Gordon Bunshaft. Not bad. I guess all this land was his. Now, this work is one of his most important, the Yale University, 1963. And it was published, you know, generously by the most important architecture magazines of the 60s and even 70s, Yale University. As you can see, I hesitated to pronounce its name because I'm not sure I can read it at this point very well. Weinecke, maybe, library, Yale University, 1963. It's a box that floats and it's supported just at the corners, as you can see. I like very much this tower of books with the shelves in the center. And also the stone that is used, you know, which allows the light to go through. And it is ornamental. But this centralized tower of knowledge with the books is it's a good attribute of this style library. Cartesian building, but good architecture. Sometimes I miss the regularity, the order, the confidence, the luminous, Cartesian culture that at that time was promoted. Now we live at a time of contortions, and when we do not contort things, we build in a rather boring way. Gordon Bunshaft, a library at Yale University, and structurally, outstanding. American Republic Insurance Company headquarters, 1965. Well, it does look like an insurance. A few days ago, I discovered a new word, outsurance. So there is the word insurance, but I saw in an advertising in Great Britain this word, outsurance. And indeed, if you have insurance, why wouldn't we have outsurance? And if we have incubator, why shouldn't we have excubator? The building is not so interesting, but maybe the sphere, the sculpture, at the center, and I think I could know who the sculptor is, maybe an Italian. I think Belgium, another bank, the Cathedral of Money, doesn't quite look like a cathedral, but it belongs to money. And I kept saying something amusing that an art curator told me. She said, Dan, you have to know, bankers always talk about art and artists always talk about money, because we always talk about what we don't have. Marine Midland Building, 1967, proudly moving towards God, that is towards heaven, that is towards the sky. And the cube seems to want to ignore gravity, but the cube is not by Gordon Bunshaft. What is this? A library and museum in Austin, very monumental, intimidatingly so. Library and Museum, 1971. I wouldn't say it's user friendly. It's too distant, too fortress-like, too misanthropic. I don't like a lot of glass, but here these blank walls intimidate me. It almost looks like the Domus Eterna of art. And here is a former president of the United States with his wife, Mr. Johnson. Everything seems to be fine on this earth, doesn't it? Eternal happiness, long lives, great art museums. Carlton Center, Johannesburg, South Africa. He built a lot with SOM, of course. He built something, well, anyway, there is in New York City a similar building, very similar. Cornell University, repeating the scheme that we saw at Yale with the prism of the building supported in a few points at the bottom. One can get tired after a while of Gordon Bunshaft. Solo building, 1974. That's the building I was referring to. I forgot how it was called. The Solo building, 1974. It's on 42nd Street in Manhattan, right across the street from Bryant Park. I passed by this building many times, rather depressed and unemployed. These buildings are not encouraging for depressed people. They are too sure of themselves, too tall, too shining, too perfect. Grace Building, 1974. It's similar. I'm confused. Maybe this is the one I passed by. They are almost identical. But these North Americans are amazing. They can build a skyscraper without any misery around it. So you have just the footprint of the building on the ground, and it just moves upwards, and there is no other space, besides the projection of the plan of the building on the earth. And they do it. They develop the technology. They can do it in this way. I saw that in Frankfurt am Main in Germany, they need 2 years to build a skyscraper that in the United States can be built in a few months. Grace Building, yes, this is the one at Bryant Park. Hirshhorn Museum and Sculpture Garden, again, Washington God. This one is, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, fortunately, there is a sculpture by Alexander Calder in front of the building, but the building is, it doesn't breathe. It doesn't have porosity. It doesn't have impressionism. It's just, it could have been a bunker against atomic attacks coming from who knows who. Well, we kind of know from who, from where. But Diller and Scofidio tried to bring some playfulness into this building, the Hirshhorn Museum expansion bubble, but they didn't, it was not built, as I think. That's what they proposed. I rather, burlesque. I guess it was a reaction to the, cylindrical opaqueness of what Bunshaft did. Anyway, this expansion or extension of Diller and Scofidio was not built. National Commercial Bank. This one is a good building by Gordon Bunshaft from 1983. Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, a triangle. It looks like an equilateral triangle. And there are erosions in this tower that make it open in a way that the museum that we just saw is not. The plans and the section, you can see, they didn't use the space very efficiently, but it's a powerful building, and they had the money to ignore the lack of sufficient efficiency in the usage of space. But plenty of empty space, as you can see. You wonder what is the function of those spaces. And here is the building. Saudi Arabia. But then it looks actually better without too many so-called developments around. But when you see other buildings around, I don't know, and it's kind of apocalyptic. Another brave new world, perhaps. Well, the banks, they rule the world, don't they? The banks and the oil, industries. That's it. And now I end this mini marathon with Christian de Portson Park. Just a second to activate the. I don't know why my laptop is not allowing me to. I have to stop this.